think we're ready to get into things here. Top 4 of the regional championships here in Arlington. Both these players well deserving of this regional championship win or finalist placings. But the way things worked out, only one can advance.
These players definitely deserve to be here. They've had a grueling schedule. It has been so many rounds, 9 yesterday, followed up by another set of Swiss this morning. That is a lot of Pokemon to be playing, but we're heading on down to the table with the start coming through from John. I saw this from him earlier. He's done it again. Quick Ball and Archeops away, first turn of like the first action you take, you're getting ready for that Summoning Star. And of course, he has the Lugia V in the active. Something a little bit different for Connor in there. He does have the Oranguru in his list. There is definitely differences between the lists once you get outside of the Lugia and of course the Archeops. There's certainly differences in how they've filled out some of these high Pokemon counts, and that could be really important, particularly if you get something stuck in a place that you don't want it. So Quick Ball puts that in there, lets John go in, check the deck, see what's going on, see what he can potentially thin out a little bit more.
So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but going first is a huge advantage in this matchup. Both decks are trying to do the same thing, so whoever starts it out first is really at a huge advantage. Things get a little trickier in the late game, so we'll follow through and see how both of these players navigate through the matchup. When it comes to lists, you can kind of see the path to peak sticking out in John's hand. That is a very good disruptive card, especially going first, means that you can utilize your V-Star power and then say, hey, I've had my fun with abilities, we're going to do that. But the Manaphy being the priority grab off the Quick Ball shows that these players have played before. Connor is utilizing that amazing rare Raikou, which can be able to deal 120 damage to both the active and bench Pokemon. And in this matchup, it's a very powerful attacker, and John right away is respecting it.
Smart, knowing about the Manaphy, something again we've been talking about. Do you bring the Manaphy? Do you leave it at home? In this matchup, he's going to be able to feel pretty good about it. So you said earlier that game went down to not being able to get set up. Things are looking good for John. Sometimes people get a little bit concerned about maybe stagnating a little bit by playing something like that, but you're in a really good position if you can wave Veil. Of course, you know, the Dunsparce would be something to keep you safe, but if that just gets taken out by the amazing rare Raikou, that's going to be a massive problem. A very simple turn, though, for John. Just the Quick Ball, just get rid of the Archeops, cause problems that way. Connor's going to get a Lugia down of his own. Of course, the Oranguru does have access to Primate Wisdom. We want to see a couple more cards, but I think there's plenty to play for Connor Finton here. Mulling over the hand, Ultra Ball, getting rid of a Collapsed Stadium and a Boss's Orders, letting him go in the deck and take one of those juicy searches of his own. It's going to be the Archeops coming to the front of the pile, being selected, but he's still taking his time, making those counts, seeing what is going on in this list. Let's see if he figures out his whole prizing. That's something that these players are very, very good at being able to do. Just making sure you know where everything is, maybe look at some other options that you think are very valuable, and figure out where they are.
Yep, Archeops early grab draw, no surprise for either of these players. You want to get those in the discard pile really quickly. With the way that this hand is working for Connor, may have to grab something like Luminion off of this Quick Ball, and you never want to put these 2 prize Pokemon into play if you don't want to. But again, Luminion with that great Aqua Return attack is able to put itself back into the deck, so as long as John doesn't target it down, which I mean, John is not necessarily in a priority to draw down. These first couple of turns for both these players are just going to be building the hands up as much as possible, as Connor actually opting to grab a Marnie instead. And this is a good tell as well, because the fact that John played Quick Ball and grabbed Manaphy and didn't grab something like Luminion shows that John has a viable hand. Like, this hand can be played. So Connors may just say, hey, I've got no Archeops to discard from this hand otherwise. I might as well just play Marnie and maybe try to throw you off your game plan a little bit.
Well, more to come from Connor as the Capture Energy hits the Lugia V. That's going to grab him another one of the Lugia Vs as well. They're both matched right now. They've both made the Quick Ball Archeops discard play, so they're both kind of in the same boat. And I think Connor trying to disrupt him with the Marnie and keep things pushing along for himself. There it is, knowing that John had a pretty solid hand, all things considered, heading onto the bottom of his deck. Not going to be something he can draw into. It's not got a shuffle component in there as well. And this hand looks drastically different for John.
So Connor does have to prioritize getting down to Lugia V. John does not. And the reason for that is that John could potentially boss his orders up one of these and shut Summoning Star off. And as we've seen in previous games, playing this game without Summoning Star it's nearly impossible. I mean, we talked about manual attaching to Regigigas. Okay, that was a different circumstance. This, it's not possible at all, which it's very unfortunate for Connor because you have to put multiple of these 2 prize Pokemon in play. That's not really what you want to see in this case.
Ooh, well, John's hand not looking too exciting for him there. Doesn't have an Archeops to discard, does have the Radiant Charizard. which, you know, something is just mulling over, trying to keep a hold of that one for later. Could, of course, go Ultra Ball, grab some pieces, but has to be careful, right? Because needs a way to discard everything in the right order. That's a big thing here. If you Ultra Ball and grab, you know, the Archeops, then, you know, you just got to be figuring it out, and that's certainly going to be tough because the Ultra Ball wants an Archeops to discard, but you also want the Ultra Ball to make sure you can access Summoning Star as well.
Yeah, so this is also unfortunate because remember, John did prize an Aurora energy, which means this one is gone. One of them is prized, and then on top of that, there's only one other energy that can provide the attack cost for both Charizard and the Yveltal, which is the Heat Fire energy. So with all that being in mind, John doesn't have the resources left to attack with both of those in the deck, especially because one of them is discarded, one of them is unavailable, can utilize 3, but also really valuing the Charizard, could have maybe preserved it, utilized the capture energy on the active, but says, hey, listen, I need these one-prize Pokemon to attack later in this game, especially when I'm going first. You're going to see John's game plan completely pivot here, benching a lot of these 2-prize Pokemon right now, but if he can continue to take advantage in this prize trade, what will eventually slowly happen is it will transition over from Lugia VSTAR, maybe Lumineon to attack a little bit, to these powerful one-prize Pokemon, needing to still find the Lugia VSTAR. Is it in the hand? Does find it, though. That's a big grab.
Yeah, he has access to it as well, being able to, of course, go in with the Evolution Incense, keep things moving along that way, be able to Summoning Star is really big here. So getting those Archeops right back out, he's got 2 bench spaces, and I can imagine what's going to be put in those, making sure you have access to all those pieces. Now is when he has to start looking at the energy counts in his deck. What's going on in there? How's he going to be able to, you know, set up these attacks? What are we looking on the powerful energy counts? That's really big, particularly if you're pushing for knockouts. The powerful energy count actually huge in this matchup, being able to maybe push with powerfuls early and take 2-prize knockouts that you wouldn't with just a standard issue Tempest Dive.
Yeah, so it's very situational on what Connor has in the active. In this position, does not need to commit any powerful energy.
Nope.
The powerful energies in this matchup are usually utilized to respond KO to a Lugia.
Yes.
That's respond KO your Lugia, because Connor's play most likely next turn has the potential to maybe come up and knock out this Lugia. But then again, from there it becomes what attacker is best to respond to what. So it's sort of like rock, paper, scissors in a little bit. So for example, when Lugia comes up, what's good into it? Well, there's a lot that can knock Lugia out. But if there's a Pokemon like Charizard or Yveltal, Lumineon is really good because it can knock it out, save the energies, and put it back into the deck. So both of these players, you're going to see them utilize a wide variety of attacks that are optimized to preserve as many energy as possible while also making it so that they are putting up as little liable Pokemon as possible. And John is even considering utilizing the Lumineon Aqua Return early. Let's think about this play a little bit. So I think the play is okay if obviously John needs to have the attachment in hand too. This way you play around Connor taking that first turn 2-prize knockout. Connor would take the prize lead early, but things get a little bit complicated from there. I think John, so again, you're going to lose the 2 energy anyways because the Lugia still has to retreat into the Lumineon.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't hate this play from John, but John doesn't have the attachment from hand anyways right now, so he's going to be forced to commit onto this Lugia, whether he likes to or not.
Yeah, certainly a tough choice, and he's mulling over his options, making sure he knows everything in there, kind of mapping out the rest of the game while he does it as well. There's the double turbo energy being brought up to the front. Let's see where that one's going. Let's see how he wants to play this one out. He's kind of counting up those powerfuls, I think, is a really big factor here. But looks like he's pulling a double powerful. The thing is, if he commits all that energy and that Lugia gets return knocked out, that is absolutely disastrous for him here. So he's still mulling over, still getting a little bit excited about this one, making sure that he has options. Of course, there's you know, options as well. What else does he want to attack with? There's the double turbo, so he does have the requisite energy.
So I think John is considering if Connor doesn't play V-Guard energy, then 2 powerful energy and a choice belt is enough to take a knockout onto a Lugia. But if not, you're going to need 3 powerful energy and a choice belt to get the job done. This case is just a little bit safer. I think John is just trying to balance being as aggressive and risky as possible while also being safe to take these knockouts. You kind of have to balance both, because if you play too safe and your opponent plays really risky into you and is able to find all of these maybe overextension knockouts that end up working out in the favor, that could be something that is concerning. But Connor's still got a pretty big job to do. I think the main miss there from John didn't find any of those paths to peak, which would have been really solid against Connor to maybe stunt his setup a little bit. But at this point, Connor's got 1 Archeops in the discard pile. Ultra Ball can find a second one. However, Luminion's already been benched. Luckily, both these players understand the importance of Luminion, playing 2 copies of them.
Yeah, there's the Ultra Ball, getting rid of a Capture Energy and a Choice Belt. Get the Archeops out there as well. Get the second Archeops in the discard with the Quick Ball. So see what he wants to grab off that. Certainly going to be a big choice for him here. Making sure his bench is set up. He's still got to find a way to, of course, get that Lugia V into the Lugia VSTAR. The Luminion going to be the play here to make sure he can grab a supporter, just like John did, and keep on pushing as needed. Of course, the premium choice here is Professor's Research. There it is. There's Professor's Research in the hand, and we'll make sure that everything's in order just before we go. Oh, he already had the Lugia VSTAR in hand. He doesn't even need to dig for it. So there's a powerful energy put down on it, and of course, it's going to be the VSTAR. Get those Archeops out. Everything's going really, really well for Connor here, being able to set that up and go from there.
And most likely, Connor is going to want to utilize Primal Turbo before, and I think maybe realizing,
yeah, he has to shuffle.
So yeah, shuffling first. So
no, he hadn't shuffled after the search, so he needed to shuffle. All he has left in hand is the research. He grabbed the Luminion, grabbed the research, didn't go back in. This is just everything's in order.
So the research can get played here. I think Connor is just debating what energies to do. Sometimes it's better to just utilize Primal Turbo before you play research, so you don't draw into a bunch of these special energies that you want.
Well, he hasn't. He's got away with it.
This looks like a regular Lugia hand to me, man. It doesn't look like there's 12 special energies in the deck, and this is going to work out perfectly.
Yep.
I think the main concern there for I mean, it ends up working out this way, right? But there is like a nightmare scenario where Connor draws into like all 3 powerful energy, and now all of a sudden it's not working out so well. But this ended up working out well for Connor. Was able to find all the pieces, even finding the capture energy onto Luminion. And this is again Connor preparing for what attacker John is going to use. John's only ways to take a knockout onto this Lugia are through the Radiant Charizard and through the amazing rare Yveltal. And what is Luminion able to knock out in one hit? Both the Yveltal and the amazing rare Charizard.
Well, there's an evolution in sense from Connor, just thinning out the deck, making sure that this Archeops isn't in the way for anything that he needs to cause problems with. He's able to kind of keep on pushing. The amazing rare Charizard, or the Radiant Charizard, sorry, is in the hand once again for Connor, so he can access that as well. But the prize trade immediately heads over in Connor's favor. 2 prizes given up right there when he looks down and sees that Lugia VSTAR. Take that out, take the prize trade. And honestly, starting Oranguru has kind of worked out a little bit for John here, for Connor rather, making things harder for John. The Radiant Charizard heading up, getting the choice banned. Is going to need to find that special heat fire energy though, to be able to make sure you hit the required. Obviously you can do it with others as well, but I think that's probably the preferred choice right now, with some of those more particular, more versatile energies being thrown into the discard already.
But again, the problem is there's already an Aurora in the discard pile and 1 prize. So as we're looking towards the end game here for John, does have to still put 3 total energy onto this Charizard.
Yeah, he's got it.
As Excited Heart will only reduce the energy attacks by 2. Things to again notice. How are the attackers going to be able to continuously stream 1-hit knockouts for John when you're down a good amount of resources? Had to discard a few capture energies early, already down the Aurora energies. But for now, the Choice Belt is a big find. This guarantees the knockout onto the Lugia VSTAR. Still has access to a second Primal Turbo. This can find energies to put onto either the Archeops or the Luminion, potentially as a pivoter. The way this matchup works out is this Charizard right now is such a big threat that Connor is almost forced her to deal with the Charizard. And then from there, it just becomes, oh, well, another big threat is attacking me, or another Pokemon is being put up. And it kind of becomes this idea of you don't have like a bunch of options to gust. They do exist, but a lot of the times they end up not being beneficial for you because the main threat is right in front of you. Like if there's a Charizard with a Choice Belt on it, and if there's a Yveltal fully powered up, like those Pokemon, your opponent wants to knock them out because they do way too much damage and way too much pressure over on the opponent's side.
Yep, there is going to be a knockout coming into this turn that's going to put John down to 3 prizes. Connor will then be sat there. If he takes a knockout on the Charizard himself, he'll be on 3 prizes. Looks like we're doing a little count of what's in the hand, so that may give us an indication of what John's feeling. Of course, Combustion Blast there, 250 plus 30, 280 on the money.
Here we go. This is on Connor here. The Luminion coming up shows us that we will most likely see the Aqua return. Bring that back into the deck. Charizard is weak to water, so we'll take 240 damage from the Luminion. Besides that, though, I mean, Connor, this is kind of the advantage of Lugia, and this is why Lugia is so strong, is like, what does Connor need to do this turn? The Archeops will find any energy needed to power up any attacker. Charizard's already on the board. The bench is full. I mean, if anything, you maybe draw some more cards to try to find these gusting cards like Serena and Boss's Orders, but even you're going to free your bench spot up anyways, which means the Luminion that you're about to put back into the deck, does that. This does everything you want to in this deck, and this is why Aqua Return is so good. Not only are you taking a knockout and putting up a one-prize Pokemon potentially that isn't going to be a huge threat, or rather, it is going to be a huge liability to get knocked out, but additionally, you're recycling the ability to just find any supporter card you want next turn, as we even see the Heat, Fire Energy, and the V-Guard get put onto this Charizard. Hold on, this is a big play here potentially. This puts us up to be a little bit bigger, so plus 50 HP, but still the way things work out is Lumineon will be able to take a knockout on it. It's going to do 240 damage.
That's way too much, and the money being pretty big here for Connor. You know, he's kind of got everything going for him. He's obviously going to be shuffling in that Lumineon as well. So anything that he may need is going to be coming back. Draws up his 5. Nothing really important right now. I mean, he's kind of just set for the game. There's nothing else Connor needs to do. And I think what we talked about a little bit at the beginning of the game is, you know, what order did the attackers come through in? And really, yes, Connor did lose the first Pokemon, but it was a one-prize. It was a Rangaroo, and now they're just swinging into each other and kind of really struggling a little bit here to keep up that prize trade. Really depends what John got off this Marnie as well, and John could try level up the prize trade a little bit, maybe targeting down one of the other Lumineon, you know, something that's a little bit easier to knock out at 170, but still, what's the next attacker? This Charizard is gone at the end of the term.
So it can feel a little counterintuitive to say, but sometimes going after Lumineon instead of Lugia, if you can knock out both Pokemon, can be an advantage because, again, Lumineon can remove itself from play, and if you're trying to go after 2 prize Pokemon to knock out, it could be a good position. Yveltal is not online. That is not a potential option for John. The Aurora Energy being prized means that right now there's 2 down, so there's no way to fulfill the attack costs, so we also have to consider how John can close this out. Archeops does have a powerful energy, so this is a potential way to maybe take a knockout onto Lumineon. With 2 powerful energy, it would put it up to 160. However, there is still multiple left, so John Eng can put himself into a spot where he essentially can't lose the game. Connor still has 3 prize cards left.
Yep.
Right now, the only way that Connor can win the game in 2 turns is to knock out with something like Lumineon, and then the following turn, go for one of these 1-prize Pokemon. John's going to go to 2 prizes regardless, and there's 2 on Connor's side. So this is John's decision to either say, this turn is going to be my turn to go after your 2-prize Pokemon, or next turn I'm going to try to take out either the Lugia or the Lumineon to win this game.
Well, here's a V-Guard energy coming through, a Primal Turbo from the bench Archeops, the one that John has decided to mark. Being able to see another one of those powerful energy as well. But the big thing is, you know, can he target onto something a little more premium than this Archeops? Connor set up really nicely in the previous turn, right? He already got some energy down onto the Radiant Charizard, fulfilled that fire energy requirement with the Heat Fire energy, and then he's going to be in a great position to keep going. If they start swinging just like 1 for 1, it's certainly going to be hard because John's almost like running out of resources, right? If you start losing Archeops, you're fine to lose them as long as all your Pokemon are set up.
Yeah, so I think what John is eyeing up here is that Lumineon on the bench. This is plus 60 damage from these 3 powerful energy, so Speed Wing will be dealing 180 damage. Also has Path to the Peak into play, so can shut off the Excited Heart ability on the Radiant Charizard, force it to have more energy cards needed. And I think this is what John is eyeing up at this point. The hand doesn't have anything else going for it, just the boss's orders, Path to the Peak, and Dunsparce. So this is what you got to do. You understand that if I don't do this, nothing else is going to happen. Even the second Primal Turbo can come out and put some energies into play. And I think John understands that the turn after this, as long as Lumineon is removed off of the board, that means that Connor doesn't have a two-turn route. He's pretty much saying, hey, this turn, I'm going to go to 1 prize and put myself on a 1-turn clock to win. But you still got to take 3 turns to win.
Yeah, Path to the Peak will be absolutely massive here, and the way the Path to the Peak shuts these Pokemon down is really kind of unique, I think. Something that I really enjoy in the game. You know, it's certainly a tough one to be able to do, but the boss's orders, yeah, has to go after that Lumineon, put himself on the 1 prize. You know, there's no sign of that stadium yet, though, so that kind of lock situation isn't quite there for him yet. But the fact that Radiant Charizard, it is a rule box. It might not look like I mean, it is a pretty beautiful looking card.
It is nice, yeah.
But you know, there's no path lock though. So you know, he's left the Archeops, which means Connor cannot close out this game. And John, all he needs to do is find a knockout on that final turn.
So Connor does still have a line in this game, and what essentially is happening here is because John is at 1 prize, Connor for the rest of the game is just going to try to attack with the biggest, bulkiest Pokemon in play in this Lugia VSTAR, and this is what he has to do. Is just go for this play to attack with Lugia VSTAR and say, listen, I just I don't think you can put on enough pressure. You're going to also be losing an Archeops this turn, so you only now have one Primal Turbo to work with. And
Yep.
hey, if I can knock out your 2 Archeops before you can set attackers up, what are you going to do in this position?
Right, it's going to be kind of John, I think, having to make sure this Archeops, the last one on this turn, assuming this one gets knocked out, which I think is pretty reasonable for Connor to suggest, then leave that Lugia VSTAR up and say, I'll just skittle you out while I, maybe try and dig for the boss. This Archeops goes down, the Lugia's still set up, and then he can grab that Luminion. That would be absolutely huge, being able to grab it that way. But just making sure, it looks like John is diving through the discard, trying to see, what's going on? Where are them boss's orders at? Because we haven't seen them yet from Connor, so they've got to be somewhere in that deck for him to get access to them.
So Connor's still got some options, does still have access to both of the Primal Turbo, and this is going to be the question here. What can John do to put on enough pressure, now being down a single Archeops, and having no way now to take a one-hit knockout onto Lugia? Remember, that Aurora Energy is still, I believe, did draw into the Aurora Energy off the prizes. However, with only one Archeops in play, there's no way to just power up an Amazing Rare Yveltal in a single turn. It is limited on the attackers that can be used. John put himself in a great spot, one prize card away. But as we see in these mirror matches, you have to have the gas to go all the way across the finish line to be able to take these last prizes. Lugia standing in your way. Connor's not going to make it easy here for John to close this game out.
No, not at all. Connor is going to throw up one of the big numbers, 280 to be precise, something that Luminion could only dream of being able to hit. I think now John's going to be able to kind of start going through, knows what's in there. He is going to power up the Luminion, so Aqua Return is definitely the play. Kind of buy himself a turn, right? Maybe throw that mana fee up, something that doesn't matter at this juncture, because then Connor can just knock that out, and then he's got a potential play. The problem is he's just not going to be able to hit the numbers right now with those powerful energies gone. Even an Aqua Return and a Speedwing, that's still only 240, and even a Choice Belt isn't going to get you there. You need a powerful energy involved, and those powerfuls are done.
Well, here's the issue right now, is John is going to essentially remove all the energy out of play, and if Connor can target down this Archeops, there will be no attacker that John can use on the following turn to take this knockout. Charizard has already been utilized. There's no ways to recover this, and this hand, too, John really can't dig. So I think what John is considering is, do I just bench Stoutland here at this point? What do I do? Because essentially, the powerful energy comes down, but the game still works this way. So I think what John is doing at this point is saying, look, I'm going to attack you here, I'm going to deal damage to you, and I'm going to just dig through my deck. And the whole goal is if you have boss's orders, the game's over. I've got nothing on my board. I'm going to be left with a single mana fee left, and that's it. But if you don't, all I need to do is just use one more Primal Turbo and target down something like the Lugia that's been hit pretty hard, or another one of these one-prize Pokemon.
Well, he's going to go in the deck with the Evolution Incense, making sure he's thinning everything out, making sure he's got options to hit what he needs to hit on these following turns. Of course, there's plenty of ways you can try and play through this. But, getting those energies back in is certainly, think how much is in the discard now for John. That's a lot of energy committed, and, the kind of way to get around it is absolutely awful. Path to the Peak is in play, though, so that Charizard is not a factor right now. Not something that, Connor could just easily step up and win a game with, potentially. So certainly a tricky situation, but it looks like John's kind of out of gas. He does have the boss's orders in hand for the following turn. So let's see it. There's the Aqua Return. All of that goes back in, including the energy. Those are in a great place. Amazing Rare Yveltal is there. The boss's orders goes onto the Archeops.
And that's it. And again, John has no way to win this game, and very smartly concedes, doesn't want to waste any more time. Connor Finton taking game one. Again, banked off of the fact that Marnie, I mean, John still had the boss that turn. The Marnie was played over on Connor's side, but there was nothing else to follow up. The Aurora energy wasn't there. There was no way to find the Yveltal to start powering that up. The Aurora was eventually drawn off the prizes, but you're now at that point down your second Archeops. The Yveltal is not a reasonable option to use that late in the game when you need to be streamlining attackers, snap, really, really fast.
Yeah, and I think the fact that the Archeops started falling for John there, didn't have quite as well developed a board as Connor, and Connor just always had a lot going on. John spending one of those spaces on the mana fee that, Connor didn't seem to care about that. Didn't exactly go and pull out the Raikou, did he? Didn't play it responsibly. John being very proactive, but kind of losing out on being able to set up multiple options. Playing down the double Lugia, for example, was something he just wasn't able to do, and of course Connor was. Speaking of players though, do want to mention there is already one finalist decided. There is going to be Alex Kreckler advancing into the finals. So that is the sweet reward for either of these players at the table now. You'll be facing off against that Melanie box. I don't think they know that yet, but it's a nice little surprise for them for later. It was a very, very brisk set. Of course, in game number 1, Alex set up that turn 2 air attack with VSTAR and set everything up his way. So a lot going on in that set, but a lot going on very, very quickly.
What did I say? I said Alex is going to take this event down, and right now he's proven to me that he's got what it takes to potentially get all the way there. Getting into game number 2, John, I'm sure, will be going first again. We saw that it wasn't as simple as just starting first and getting everything you need. There was just that moment there when Connor played Marnie where John was able to boss and take the knockout on Manaphy, or rather take the knockout on Luminion, but he wasn't able to simultaneously set up another powerful Pokemon to be able to take that last prize card like the Yveltal. Those early game discards and prizes really hurting. Prizes are for John in this case. 2 energy at the top is really unfortunate. You want to have those resources. Luckily, these players are playing lots of copies of Archeops, even though you only need to discard 2, and theoretically only need 2 in your deck. It's better to have multiple just in case something like this happens where 1 is in the prize cards.
Yeah, but you usually go dig them out anyway with the Evolution Incense. One of those Evolution Incense is in the prizes, so limiting those outs a little bit there. But prizes coming down for Connor. An Archeops of his own in the same spot. Choice Bell, Double Turbo, Marnie, Oppressive Research. They share that. Ooh, one of those powerful energy, which could become a bit of a factor if they're stretching. I have seen the board has already been flipped, and that mana fee is definitely going to be a factor, as that is the Raikou ready to go with the amazing shot. The mana fee that's already in the hand for Jonang.
This is so tough. I don't think John knows a powerful is prized and discarding it right away off the Ultra Ball.
Brutal.
He's going to get the bad news here, which means
He's
not having 3 powerful is so unfortunate, because if Connor's able to put a V-Guard energy onto a Lugia, there's no way for John's Lugia on his side to knock it out. And I can tell John just had an unfortunate hand here to start things out. Has Manaphy, which usually you could just go ahead and discard, but when your opponent has Raikou, just in case you aren't able to find the pieces, it becomes unfortunate. Now look at it this way though, right? So John going first is most likely going to get the first attack, and there's no incentive for Connor to move this Raikou out of the active. Maybe John could have considered, hey, if I'm going to be content to knock out this Raikou, and that's the only reason that I need Manaphy, maybe I can afford to ditch it and discard it.
Well, it'd be a risk. I don't know how I feel about that.
Sometimes you got to take risks to win games. That's how Pokemon works.
You do have to buy a ticket to win the raffle, as I've said numerous times before. But the Archeops are discarded with a quick ball. This combo is so popular with these Lugia players. I think I've seen it 15 times now over the course of today.
Enough, right? We've seen it plenty at this point.
Yeah, go get it with the Ultra Ball and then discard it with a quick ball. Makes a lot of sense. And of course, keep your bench rocking and rolling. So plenty of work to do for both of these trainers as they start out with a slightly sluggish bench. There's the amazing rare Yveltal. So we've got some very, very attractive cards on the board right now, but still a long way to go to set them up. You know, we're still not even looking at Archeops. We're still not looking at Lugia VSTARs yet. Still got plenty of work to get on with.
Gonna need a lot off this research. Does not have Lugia V-Star yet. Needs to find a way to discard the second Archeops. Also has to commit potentially the powerful energy. Okay, resource-wise energy for John. Immediately in my mind, I'm thinking this could be something that John's got to really take care of, and you just got to think about. Has to commit another powerful to the active. And let's see how things look for John, or rather look for Connor. Just have research, but a good amount of resources in the hand as well. Powerful Aurora and Double Turbo. However, it is accompanied by some Ultra Balls, so this can start to fetch out the Archeops, and research can draw some cards. See if Connor, while being on the back foot again, going second, it works this way, right? If both players set up, going first is, somebody explain this to me, that if both Lugia players are playing and both set up, going first, you're at a huge advantage. However, that only works if both players set up. And if you're not able to get both your Archeops in play for some reason, if you miss a turn, if you're not able to follow knockouts out like John was unable to at the end of that first game, things can start to spiral out of control.
Yeah, it's really tough if you miss that Summoning Star ability on your second turn of the game. Of course, making sure you discard all those pieces is absolutely essential. The Archeops, the Aurora Energy, both these trainers are absolutely tearing through their resources in this one, making sure that those energies, are getting tight. John is committed now with one in the prizes, one on the active, and one in the discard. He's never going to be able to reach that magic number that he needs to without the help of the choice belt as well. So a tough old beat for him here if he finds some of those counts a little bit lighter. But obviously has to keep playing. There's a powerful energy on the Lugia V on Connor's side as well, just before he hits that Professor's Research and draws into 7. So let's see how he goes off that one. Aurora Energy, Quick Balls, Evolution Incense. Okay,
yeah.
so we're getting the double Archeops in the discard. That is guaranteed.
Yeah, this is looking really good. Double Archeops, double Lugia down as well. Don't forget that you always have to get down to Lugia going second. You can't take the risk of your opponent having the absolute nuts in their hand and being able to go after. John would be more than happy to just Archeops, put one Archeops into play if it meant getting rid of the single Lugia. So smartly, Connor has played this mirror match tens of, probably hundreds of times at this point, knows what to do. Getting the second Lugia down. It actually was fine to have a second Lugia VSTAR in play for Connor too towards the end of the game because he was able to put it up and John wasn't able to deal enough damage to get through that big wall, that VSTAR Pokemon.
I like having the double Lugia VSTAR. I think when when your opponents burn some of the powerful energies, as we saw John doing quite liberally in game number 1, being able to turn those around and say, you know what, actually I'm just going to be able to start taking knockouts, and you're not going to be able to respond. 220 is a huge amount of damage. You're in a really good position. So there's another powerful energy. These are getting absolutely torn through. The Manaphy is gone, so he is banking, as you said, on being able to remove this Raikou. I'm seeing Choice Belts. I'm seeing Aurora Energy.
Oh, last card was the Lugia V-Star. Wow, that's huge. He almost missed it, and that would have spelled disaster there.
He's going for it.
He's got 2. He's got 2.
Oh, yeah, he does
top decked Archeops for the turn,
yeah, he's got the 2 in there, so he's setting up beautifully. This is going to be a very sharp change of pace from John here. Being able to take out the Raikou means that bench space that he committed on the Manaphy last game is just not required any longer. So let's see what he goes for on this one. Don't think you want to be going any further than the powerfuls, so just make sure you can hit this Raikou, you can get the first prize. But once again, this comes back to the situation John found himself in last time. He did swing first, he did take the single prize, and it wasn't enough to stop Connor, who just immediately retaliated with a double prize knockout and took control from there.
Things are a little different now. John's got access to a few more resources. Also has the Yveltal down already. Can also utilize the second Primal Turbo to put any energy freely onto the board. Did draw into a few of those energies, maybe that John didn't want to, but it does still have access to that second one. We'd like to see a few energy get thrown onto the Yveltal. Connor is pretty telegraphed, pretty confirmed. This Lugia V-Star is going to be attacking into John's Lugia V-Star, so you might as well just start to power up this Yveltal with some energy if it's possible. So, otherwise, the only downside here is that John does have a lot of these energies needed to power up Yveltal in the hand, but choosing not to use the second Primal Turbo is going to take the prizes, but not drawing into any of those energy cards off the prizes.
No, but right now I think he still has enough resources to be able to get there. The Aurora energies have been used quite sparingly, not throwing them away as casually as he did in the last game. There's another Evolution Incense, get that Lugia V-Star going as well. So make sure you've got all the pieces you need. Let's see. Oh, he can do it. He can do it with the Aurora energy as well. So we can use this Ultra Ball to go grab, I believe, the second Archeops. Yep, just make sure. Aurora energy, discard Summoning Star. Let's go.
So he's already got 2 in the discard pile. So he's all set on that end. So this can actually grab Luminion to find any supporter card. And Marty worked wonders for Connor in game 1. If it worked once, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It caused a lot of problems for him there. So being able to shuffle up after that Luminion, certainly helping things out. I thought he only had 1.
Oh, maybe. Well, look at the rest of the hand, though. Maybe it is just still worth it to go for the Luminion regardless, because it's like, what else do you do with this hand?
Yeah, he must have 2. If he's
he does.
Starring.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, there they are. My apologies.
No worries.
On that one. Of course, there's another powerful energy. So both trainers going 2 powerful energy on the Lugia, but he's going to get the 3rd off this Primal Turbo. There's the capture. He's able to start swinging with this Lugia and taking knockouts, the additional 20 damage each time. 3 of those, 220 plus 60, 280 on the money.
And again, powering up the Luminion, getting ready to respond to this Yveltal that's most likely trying to come up and utilize Amazing Destruction on the following turn. Pairing it up with a Marnie. The knockout is already there for Connor, able to also get down the second Lugia. V-Star means that it's going to have a little bit more HP, going to be a little bit easier to not get knocked out. And there it is. Triple powerful energy means that 280 damage on the money. Lugia V-Star will be knocked out. It's on John to find a way to incorporate these one prize Pokemon to favorably swing this prize trade back. We'll be able to take 2 with this Yveltal, and this is why this card is so powerful. You're about to see a master class in how broken it is to use double Archeops on a turn. Yveltal never saw play before the use of Archeops. Its energy cost is ridiculous. 5 energy, 3 different types of energy required in that too. It synergizes with none of the decks in Standard before. And it just, on 110 HP Pokemon, you do all that work just to have your Pokemon get knocked out the following turn. Now, because it's so easy to power it up, you're fine allowing it to get knocked out when you're taking these 1, 2, 3 prize knockouts on important Pokemon.
Are you telling me you don't have a deck that regularly utilizes Fire, Psychic, and Dark energy, Ethan?
I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is strange. Very odd to see that that's not one of your favorite archetypes. But yes, this amazing destruction is going to go after this Lugia VSTAR, put the prize trade back in John's favor. And then it's up to Connor. I mean, if Connor can get rid of these energies, that's a lot of resources down for John, and it could be becoming one of these games where he just runs out of steam. But another Lugia V-Star grabbed with that Evolution Incense. Maybe, you know, John is going to start looking at that Lugia play where he says, you know what, you'll level the prize trade at the end of this turn, but then I'll start winning by putting my big Lugia up in front of yours. That is something that was very impactful in the last game because he's already got the Lugia V in hand. That hits the bench, and he's just getting ready for the following turns. Of course, it does take a lot of energy commitments. He does still have a lot of double turbos in there, but you know, still going to be a 2-hit knockout even with the reduction from the double turbos. So yep, there is the amazing destruction, and there it is. John Eng taking 2 prizes off that one, being able to get the prize trade in his advantage. But Connor's still got a board nicely set up. He's got the Archeops. They've both got the Archeops. They've both got a Lugia. One's a V-Star, one's a V. But then this, you know, Luminion is going to bounce back into the deck.
Yep, this is what's going to happen. Connor very understands that John knows it's going to happen, so is more than happy to just start slowly powering this Luminion up, meaning that only 1 Primal Turbo needs to be utilized on it to take this knockout, grabbing the Radiant Charizard as well. Connor will be able to even things up at this point, but again, it could still be tough towards the end of the game. Charizard will get some energies onto it with the Primal Turbo. What else can be done? This can grab any basic out of the deck, potentially see the Luminion come down, and it will be utilized to grab the Serena. Oh. And here we go. This is a big-time play for Connor. John, by benching it this turn, didn't maybe realize necessarily the Charizard was an option in the play. And what this does is it swings the prize trade right back into Connor's favor potentially. It is, in the moment, a good play, but you also have to think about this. You're leaving this monster of a Pokemon that is Yveltal in play, while you have 2 prize Pokemon in play, and though you will go down to 2 prizes, John can respond and go to 1 himself. Yep,
that's going to be a really tough map, but I think Connor's just desperate to keep up in the prize trade as both of them have been swinging for the fences in this one. There it is, Combustion Blast, easy knockout. The Excited Heart not being turned off by the use of something like Path to the Peak. 3 prizes taken. He's already got the Heat Fire energy and the V-Guard energy, but once again, Yveltal is going to be able to knock out whatever it is facing down at the end of this turn. That is the big thing for John, making sure that he targets down something a little bit more valuable than this Radiant Charizard, which can attack the next turn.
So John isn't forced to play boss's orders this turn. Taking knock on this Charizard is fine. The fact that the second Luminion came down, though, means that Charizard has an easy path via boss's orders or Serena to take a knockout on one of these. There is counterplay Connor can potentially make, but it all comes down to what cards are there. The first energy will come down onto the Charizard from the hand, and the prime.
He's already got it. He's already got the Aurora energy. That's all he needs.
Okay.
He can set up some of the other stuff. Just to help himself out.
Okay. So the capture energy grabbed the Radiant Charizard. So we've seen, I believe, 1 Primal Turbo already come down to put the Aurora energy on because that happened this turn, right? So now we're just seeing the second Primal Turbo come down. That's going to grab that, I think. Okay, perfect.
Yep, just making sure that everything is in good order, making sure that you're set up for potential Speedwing play right at the end, right? You want to be able to grab one of those knockouts and keep things going in this instance. So, certainly... interesting one. Just checking the order of turns.
I don't want to. I'm just making sure. I think the capture energy came down this turn to grab the Radiant Charizard, but I could be incorrect. I think that's what ended up happening here. Capture energy did grab that because that was not down at the beginning of this turn. So unless the second Aurora energy came down somehow, yeah, I believe that this is.
They're having a review. That's all we need to know.
We're just making sure that everything gets caught. Again, this is a 10-stream match for both these players. we're in a high-pressure situation, and sometimes things like this happen, so we'll get this all resolved. This ends up being part of this here, but I mean, we're pausing in a really bad spot at this point because the game is heating up here. We're getting to the end game of game number 2, and John is in a really solid spot with how things stand right now because the way things are working is he set up a really good board. He set up a way to potentially take this here, and it looks like John does understand that the Aurora Energy did come down, so we're going to be able to figure out exactly what's happening in this position with how things stand. Still anybody's game, but John has very clearly mapped the prizes out at this point. It's going to come down to, can he find the last pieces? He felt in position as well in game 1, but because the pieces weren't there that turn where he was getting aggressive and utilizing boss's orders, things got complicated. So it looks like we resolved here.
Okay, so I believe when he flips his hand back over, we'll see the Aurora Energy that came from the hand. Because he was playing that second Primal Turbo from the Archeops on the top, he was still able to get an Aurora Energy on it. So kind of the board state's the same. It's just really an order of operations thing, making sure that everything is done correctly. You know, if you wanted to grab another one out of there, it's an easy one to make. It's an easy one to reverse as well. So there's the knockout onto the Radiant Charizard with the amazing destruction. Luminion heads into the active here. The big thing right now is, you know, Connor can't close this turn. John can close next turn.
He can, but there is a way that Connor can play around this scenario. The collapsed stadium could be the key piece here to find Connor the out. Connor can put this Luminion back into the deck with Aqua Return, bench another 1-prize Pokemon, and then utilize the collapsed stadium to get rid of this Luminion. It wouldn't guarantee him the game. John can still win with a Choice Belt and a Boss's Orders or a Serena, but it will make it a lot more difficult. I have to imagine that's what Connor's looking for, already burning both Primal Turbos, putting the energy on, has research as well. I think these are going to be a big 7 cards. Can Connor find another basic Pokemon and this collapsed stadium to remove the liability that is Luminion? He found it! He found the Yveltal, and the collapsed stadium can get rid of this bench Luminion. This shuts off a huge line of play for John. It's going to make it even harder for him to be able to get this knockout. Again, it's still possible if he has the Choice Belt and the Boss's Orders. Decided to not play Research the following turn because he had Luminion to guarantee the boss.
Yeah, he was holding on to that one, but you know he's going to be swinging. The only thing he's going to be able to swing into is a monstrous Lugia VSTAR, which is now getting the Choice Belt of its own. So there's going to be a lot of work being done there. Here comes Luminion V, being able to, of course, Aqua Return in all of those juicy resources, a weakness. The Aurora Energy, and of course the powerful, the complete opposite of weakness, going back into the deck with that Aqua Return. And yeah, I mean the Archeops is there, but realistically, how many Archeops do you need at this juncture? If you can get your Lugia V-Star up and just start swinging, John being asked a lot, he's going to have to keep streaming. And the big concern is your attacker right now is probably the Charizard, right? That's the one you want to attack with. But if you do that, you lock yourself out. You can't Combustion Blast back to back.
So what do you do in this position if you're John? So you have a few options. It gets it gets interesting. It gets really complicated in this scenario, but you can't just knock out this Archeops, because if you knock out the Archeops, the Lugia V-Star can take a knockout on anything in play. And if you don't knock out the Archeops, then, or rather, if you pretty much you're stuck, right? Because if you're not knocking out this Lugia, the Lugia, even if one Archeops is in play, can be powered up and then utilize the attack to deal enough damage. You can't boss it up because you're not doing enough. That just makes it even easier for Connor to find the resources. So what do? You're still 2 prizes away from winning the game. Do you pass the turn over? It feels like that collapsed stadium was exactly what Connor needed because John had game in hand. Connor was able to find both of those pieces.
Well, the big thing here, okay, so you go with the Archeops, you knock it out, right? But you're still a little bit shy of being able to get there because, you doesn't have the requisite amount of damage with the Speed Wing. Ooh, here we go. He's going for the Boss's Orders, taking out the Amazing Rare. He can knock that out.
So I don't think he's trying to knock out this Amazing Rare Yveltal. It doesn't change anything. The Lugia will still come up, take the knockout. He's going to pass the turnover and hope that Connor does not have the energy cards needed. But here we go. We're going to see right now, Primal Turbo. Are there enough energies? There are 2 there. Has the Bird Keeper in hand. This will switch the Lugia V-Star out, and Connor Finton will advance to the finals here at the Regional Championships in Arlington, Texas.
What a phenomenal game from both of these trainers. Connor Finton digging deep and being able to find results. In both games, bear in mind, he did go second, and he was, both these trainers set up their Lugia decks perfectly. Commiserations, of course, to John Eng. Another fantastic showing at one of these regional championships. but it's not going to be his day in the long run. He's not going to be making it into finals. Connor Finton punching his ticket for a fantastic matchup against Alex Krekler. I think Connor kind of went under our radar all weekend. We talked about him every time we brought up a standings graphic. By the time we saw just how well he was doing with his build of the Lugia, you know, some of those adaptations, looking at something like the Raikou that we saw, you know, does also have the Evil Tile. There's pieces in there we didn't quite see as well. Very heavy counts on the Lugia VSTAR, you know, foregoing this path to the peak tech, which honestly was never relevant for John in that matchup. He wasn't able to play it in a timely fashion at those elite moments, and it kind of just became a useless card for him. That collapsed stadium, the better stadium in that one, took away that 2-prize knockout that John could have fished for. Fantastic lines of play, seeing the game on so many levels.
That was the MVP there. That saved him from